All right, what is going on, everyone? This is Elevation with Chris Oram, the show where we talk to individuals who have climbed the ladder of success. I'm here for a very exciting episode today, and this is episode 14. And today's guest is Lisa Marie Vasquez. She's the Chief Strategy Officer at Eagle Sentry here in Las Vegas, Nevada. Lisa Marie is going to share with us her entire career of how she got to this point. We'll also touch on some of her passions, including personal branding, career development, and health and fitness. So with that, I welcome Lisa Marie to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So first of all, it's a great pleasure to have you on the show, but it's an even bigger pleasure to have had the opportunity to interview with you just over a year ago to get the opportunity I have today at Eagle Sentry. So I'm really happy that, I was able to pass the interview. I really have a lot of thanks to you for that. So I'm really happy to be working with you at Eagle Sentry.
It's been such a good experience working with you, and
Awesome.
I love that you're a part of the team. It's been great. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. So for the folks that may not know, what exactly is Eagle Sentry?
Okay, so Eagle Sentry is a luxury home automation company here in Las Vegas. We're probably one of the largest residential low voltage providers in Southern Nevada, and if not like the entire Western region,
Yep.
I feel like. And we've been in business for over 40 years and have a crew of anywhere between 65 to 70 employees at a given time right now.
Mm-hmm. Nice. So what type of products does Eagle Sentry deliver upon?
So we specialize in audio video solutions. That would
Okay.
include like home theater, music distribution, video distribution, shades, automated shades, motorized shades, lighting, control systems. Linear LED is a big trend right now
Nice.
in interior design, and I feel like we are really setting ourselves apart in the valley with that. And also we offer Wi-Fi, networking, and home protection services, so like alarm, surveillance, access control.
So basically, Eagle Sentry can provide all of the equipment and installation someone might need to start a smart home.
A smart home foundation, yeah, absolutely. And probably, again, more advanced than what you would get doing something DIY, but extremely custom. Everything we do is going to be very custom.
And Eagle Sentry works on the higher end of the spectrum. Is that correct?
Luxury market for sure.
So for the viewers, the homes that Eagle Sentry is in, these are all most likely $1 million and up plus, some of the most expensive homes ever sold in Las Vegas. In fact, one of my team members, Sean Hamilton, actually is the kind of resident technician at Vegas Modern, which is the Savant West Coast show home, the Blue Heron show home, and the highest record home ever sold for $25 million.
Yeah, that's right.
So this is not your everyday neighborhood. This is an extremely high-end, operation that Eagle Sentry is operating from.
That's correct.
And you're the Chief Strategy Officer.
Yes.
What does that mean?
It's a great question. I get asked that all the time. So really, there's a couple of ways I can describe it, but I have been involved at all of the levels in terms of like business strategy, development, company organization, setting a foundation. You mentioned you went through our interview process about a year ago. That didn't exist prior. Eagle Sentry was so. If you back up a little bit,
Yep.
and I know you've had some people in the industry interview about, I think like Paul Starkey was one of them, but like interview about how integrators typically are set up as more mom and pop shops, right? They don't have the career business, departments and wherewithal to like have these fancy hiring processes and onboarding processes and policies and procedures. They're kind of really passionate about audio video,
Yeah.
and then they start a company.
Right.
So when I met Corey and he bought the company, and I decided to come on board, we decided that the company really needed strategic guidance on how do we transition from being kind of the way that it was always run into transcending into a different caliber of company that is methodical, strategic, thinking about business initiatives, putting policies and processes in place, developing the administrative side of the company through onboarding processes and things like that. And so that's been a lot of my role. We also went through a process called EOS, where that CSO hat transitioned. If anybody's familiar with EOS, it stands for Entrepreneurial Operating System. And in that model, there's always a visionary and an integrator. And so I've been the integrator for Eagle Sentry, which basically means making sure that all of the departments are being integrated and working together and removing barriers and helping implement and champion the EOS process at Eagle Sentry, which
Nice.
you've been a part of.
Yes.
Yeah.
So my uncle Greg actually put me on to EOS. So he told me, hey, read this book by Gino Wickman, Traction. And I got about halfway through it. I really didn't feel it at the time because I wasn't working in an organization where EOS was prominent. However, coming to Eagle Sentry, I had the opportunity to reread that book, and it actually really hit home. So I see a lot of the value in EOS. I see how it can really revolutionize a company, kind of put people in their places and have them doing the right things on a day-to-day basis. So it's a great sort of format, structure for creating a hierarchy, I guess, in the workplace. But that's super cool to hear about kind of what you've implemented as the Chief Strategy Officer. What are some big initiatives that we're working towards in 2024 and the future at Eagle Sentry?
So I think right now, so I kind of mentioned a little bit, we started EOS 2 years ago. And what's interesting about that process is, Corey has been an amazing visionary. And I don't say that lightly. It's a really awesome and privileged place to be able to work for somebody who actually knows where they want to go. I always said, if somebody comes to me and they're like, help me build something, they probably don't have a plan, right? Like, you should come to me and be like, I want to build this, right? And then I can figure out the strategic steps necessary to do that. Corey has that. So that's been amazing.
Yeah.
One of the biggest visions we had initially was just growth, and how do we establish ourselves as a company that has this foundation. And so what you've witnessed over the last couple of years, really the last year, has been us figuring out what is our playbook, what's our foundation. And that's basically ready to launch into the company and make sure that every department is not only clear on what they're doing, but these core functions and where responsibility lies, so they can truly own and evolve their roles. That's the vision, right? For this year.
Yeah.
And probably into the early parts of 2025. Aside from that, one of the things that I feel like Corey and I have bonded over is this kind of obsession over reading books and watching, YouTube videos on growth. And we share, hey, what are you reading? What am I reading? And whether it's health and fitness stuff that I'm doing, or business stuff, or AI that he's doing, we always seem to connect and mesh on that level. And so he is big right now on just the autonomous home and the future of AI. And, you interviewed him recently on where the industry is going.
Yeah.
And I think in the near future, Eagle Sentry can expect us working towards that vision in strategic phases. So I've used the analogy a lot this past week of, learning to walk before we run. We are capable of so much, and we already serve an incredible, market and deliver a superior product that I'm proud to be a part of. But what we want to do is systemize it so it's, almost turnkey and predictable every time.
Yeah.
And when people are coming into a role, it's well, here's your manual, and here's how you succeed here, and here's how we measure that success. And so all of that coming in the future months, I think will set us up for the next tier, which would be exploring how we expand the autonomous home and really leverage technology with our partners. I think where the industry is getting and has to be incredibly agile is with AI. And so there's a lot of people in the industry toying with that. So that's exciting.
Yeah, I think it's going to be super incredible to see what the autonomous home is like. But you make a great point that all of these things that we do at Eagle Sentry, all of these different jobs, all of these different kind of points of the company, they all require SOPs, a standard operating procedure. And going to your background in criminal justice, they have a precedent, right?
Yeah.
So to say that this has never happened before, that in some cases that might be the case, but 90% of the time, I think these experiences that we have happen to us every day, they've probably happened before, in years past. So it's, how does Eagle Sentry react to that? How do we operate when this happens? We do this.
Yeah.
And if it's the first time something's happening, we can document that and see if this was a win, a loss, or if we need to debrief and find a better solution to the problem. And I think you embody that as the Chief Strategy Officer, that your role is to provide these systems and put them into place, because otherwise we would just be hanging TVs and putting in speakers and things would go wrong and it would be just all sorts of chaos.
Yeah, and that's kind of usually what happens in AV companies. I mean, my husband owns a company in the industry, and one of the things before I ever got exposed to this industry is he always used to say, we're trying to avoid like the house makes me sad.
Yeah.
And I never understood what that meant, just given my background. Like, it's like, what does that mean? And then I got into this industry and I realized, yeah, it's pretty frustrating when you go to use your system and you're pressing a button and it's not turning your lights on. Or, and people think, well, that's privilege. Well, okay, that's fine. But this is our product and it needs to work. And if it doesn't work, we need to figure out why. And we have to have the SOPs and the policies and the foundation to train our staff to not only, and here's the thing, like SOPs are great, documentation's great, but you can't put it on and enforce it in a way that stifles creativity.
Right.
You have to allow people to think autonomously and, hey, I could apply this thing I've learned in this other piece of my life or consult this person or think outside the box and propose a solution. But as long as they're thinking about what's the root problem and not getting bogged down with the weight of just SOPs either, right? But having the structure to lean on when they're kind of unsure where to go or what you're a manager, you run our service department, which quite literally is one of our most difficult departments to run. Like you get beat up all day. And I think like just knowing for you, hey, what are my decision-making parameters? What are my bumpers? What can I offer clients if I'm getting, if I want to deliver a great experience, what is that? And that's what we're trying to create.
For sure. And I think often about the client experience, like if I was in this person's shoes, how would I want to go? I think it's a lot of times very tricky because these people are calling in kind of most likely an upset fashion if things aren't working. I was just telling you before the show, my Toyota wasn't working, and that's an upsetting experience. So you get on the phone, you're like, hey, I paid all this money for this, it's not working. So like I relate to that. If I come into my house after a long day at work, like even if things didn't go well at work and then my lights don't work, it's like you shouldn't take it out on someone. I think a lot of times people do take it out on someone, especially the person over the phone. But it is our job to provide a quick solution. And we have systems in place now, better than ever before, where we actually have a plan rather than it's, hey, bro, will you do me a favor? I'll buy you lunch.
Yeah.
We were just talking about this the other day. So wanted to definitely bring light to that situation.
It's true.
And then you were talking about a book you're reading right now.
Yes.
What's the name of that book?
So Unreasonable Hospitality.
Okay.
And it's so funny. Years ago, so have you ever watched the Steve Jobs commencement speech?
At Stanford?
Yeah. He talks about connecting the dots. And it's something my husband and I talk a lot about in our life because of how we met and our story. And it's like you can look back now after we've been together almost 13 years and kind of connect the dots as to what's happened and why we're here. Similar. When I transitioned from criminal justice into kind of the chiropractic industry, which then I didn't know at the time brought me into brand and strategy development. One of the early leaders that I worked for introduced me to a story about this restaurant called Nomad. And he gave this amazing keynote speech called Finding Your Miles Davis. And it's about just like, when you look, he had this picture of Miles Davis. And it's like, it was just like passion. Like it embodies everything you would think about, like just loving what you do. He delivers this speech and then he ties it into like core values and references Nomad and how they became #1 in the world in the restaurant, industry.
Yep.
And then I forgot about that story completely. Like never thought about it again, really. I mean, to an extent when I was like coaching and developing some brand clients, but that was his keynote. It was inspiration. Last week, Chad, my husband, calls me up and he's like, you have to read this book, Unreasonable Hospitality. It was recommended to him, I think, like on a Rogan podcast or something. And he's like, it's the Nomad story. Like it's this guy's story. You have to listen to it. And so I was like, but I'm in the middle of this other one. So I quickly finished A Hidden Potential by Adam Grant. I start reading Unreasonable.
Love Adam Grant.
Love him.
Yeah.
And I started reading Unreasonable Hospitality and I'm like, this is Eagle Sentry. He's basically trying to start a movement, really. Like if people can up the level of hospitality and service that they provide in what they do, we could elevate almost every industry. I mean, and I've worked in government, which is pretty lackluster. Higher education, put it this way, in higher education, one time I like made a Canva PDF
Yeah.
and they were like, you're a rock star. Like you could run this department. I was
Yeah.
like, I did nothing.
Yeah.
Right. But everybody like dips out at, Thursday by 2 p.m.
Yeah.
Friday takes off. Like it's just a different
Vibe.
mentality and
Yep.
vibe. And so I'm like, how do we apply that at Eagle Sentry? And I was talking with Corey about it this morning because we just get so excited about the future and possibilities and potential. And I was like, our next focus as we develop these systems around the autonomous home will be about providing a level of service that's so superior. And really getting back to that brand, the principle, what do we stand for? It's not that we just serve a luxury market. It's that we're so proud of what we do and our
Yeah.
systems work so well. And if they don't, we're willing to stand behind it. And that's sort of, I think, a unique outlier because it's not just, hey, we're going to put the system in and walk away, but
Right.
we're invested. And that's one of our core values.
Right. So it's definitely forming those long-term relationships rather than we're doing the install, then we're leaving you.
Right.
So the clients of Eagle Sentry have a long-term relationship with Eagle Sentry. Oftentimes I'll be talking on the phone with someone. They say, oh, I've been a client for over 20 years.
Yes.
It's like, thank you for being a client for 20 years. Like we
Absolutely.
have many people that, we build their first home with them. Then they're building their next home, and then they call Eagle Sentry.
Absolutely.
So it's really great to see that we can form these positive and long-lasting relationships with our clients. Even though sometimes they may be frustrated with us, I think the big thing is that we make it right.
I think and then it's communication.
Yeah.
One of our, early things we did at Eagle Sentry, and I could say this with so much pride, when we went through EOS, we sat as a leadership team and we thought about our core values. And one of the ways they lead you through that exercise, which was weird because, so for several years, I had a brand and strategy consulting firm, and I led dozens of clients through creating core values and writing mission statements. I really wasn't on the other end of somebody saying like, let's do this for your business over here. And so one of the ways they did that was they had us think of like key employees that we think about, what traits do they embody? Because
Right.
we don't want core values to just be something, you stick on like mouse pads, right? And we thought of a few people who have been with us for years and we wrote down these attributes. And it formed the basis of who we are, not who we strive to be, right? And they're not cliche. And in creating those core values, I feel like we are able to deliver all of these things.
Yeah.
Being collaborative with clients is a requirement. And you brought that. When we brought you into the interview process, we screened you against those core values.
Yeah.
You checked all the boxes. Being adaptable, collaborative, growth. One of the coolest things I think about you is your story and how you're kind of like, you've got this mindset of growth and all the things that you've done to transition your life to achieve like, this is what I want to do. I'm just going to go out there and do it.
Right.
It's like a 1% thing, right? Invested, professional, and wins and fun. Those are our 6 core values. And you embody all of those. And everybody on our team that's working together does.
Right.
And we're able now to come together and collaborate and figure out how do we work with our clients to deliver that? How do we make sure? And it's not going to be an overnight thing. My husband and I have this like trust formula we talk about. Eagle Sentry's been in business 40 years.
Yeah.
We're not going to just have Corey buy the company in 2018, rebrand the trucks, throw together a website and be like, hey, trust us. Like things are different, new ownership. You have to prove it.
Yeah.
So I came on 3 years into that journey. He did an amazing job, had the infrastructure framing was built. We went in now and we're custom integrating the company, right? Fine tuning it to make sure it delivers the experience we want. But it takes time. You have to have, time showing clients, showing people, showing partners, showing vendors, hey, we're being consistent with what we're delivering. Look at our team, look at our quality, look at our uniforms, look at how we show up, and just keep getting better.
Yeah.
And then over time, that predictability earns trust. So it's not going to be an overnight Eagle Sentry, is 100% perfect. And we're delivering it though. And we're showing up and we're being consistent and we're not abandoning that. And that's what makes it a win.
So it sounds like Eagle Sentry is elevating.
It is elevating.
Yes. So, it's crazy to think about how much time and work goes into making these SOPs. Like,
oh yeah, it's insane.
you would think we hang TVs, we put in speakers, we install racks. How hard can it be? It's so much more than that, because if it was just the install, it would be pretty easy. Mm-hmm. But it's the servicing and managing billing and client requests, and I don't like this speaker, I'd rather have this one, the upgrade options, the change orders. It becomes a lot very quickly.
I think what makes it take so long is that we are not trying to create. What we do is very complicated.
Yes.
Okay, so I don't know. This isn't necessarily common. A lot of AV companies will actually outsource their pre-wiring to like high voltage, like electrical firms, and like they'll go out and do it. Yep. We do our pre-wiring in-house. We manage, everything from the beginning. So we're dealing with construction schedules. Yep. We're dealing with new construction. We're dealing with retrofits where guys are having to go in attics and pull wire, which somehow I got roped into when I bought my new house, and I was like in my attic pulling wire, and I'm like, so Chad's like, you're doing your first retrofit. I'm like, this sucks. Yeah. Like, it was like the middle of summer.
Yeah, the summer, man.
Oh, it was awful. And so I just think about like how we do a lot of complicated things. So, okay, just pulling wire. Well, that wire has to be color coded. You got to trim these ends. You have to, what tools are you using? What standards?
How long?
How long? How do you run the wire? How much it coils? Does it not coil? Do you staple it? Do you nail it? Like things I never.
How far should it end on the wall?
Yeah. How far?
Where's the drop point?
Exactly.
Yeah.
All of these things, and it has to be recorded, and then understanding, like, again, there's an art to this, and I think this is any industry, and I'm blessed to have been in criminal justice, chiropractic, audio video, and then I've worked with other like brick and mortar. I've done consulting in so many different industries, and I have this, I think, just like clarity and respect for the uniqueness of it, stuff you don't think about. But the minute that wires run and the walls are sealed, like, you can't just turn on Smart Tint. Right. For those of you who don't know what Smart Tint is, this is really cool software, right? We offer this at Eagle Sentry, where you like push a button and it's a tint that gets applied to the windows and kind of makes it like opaque and can dim. And it's kind of an alternative to shades in some situations, especially in like really cool wet spaces or these giant windows. People don't want shades. You could do Smart Tint. You can't just Smart Tint in your wall and be like, whoa, where's that wire? And how'd that guy pull it? Like, if we're coming back in 6 months later, a year later, 5 years later, what wire are you looking for? And how did we follow the standards? If I look at the diagrams, was everything color coded properly?
The backtracking, the finding the history. It's like, what did we install in 2010? It's like,
I don't know.
It's pretty hard. And then, the number one thing I talk to people on the phone about, they say, I'll ask a specific question like, what brand of remote is this? I'm trying to do my digging questions to figure out which remote you have. The most common answer is, you should know, it's the one you installed. It's like, we install 5 different types of remotes. I'm just really trying to make sure I get you the right remote. Right.
And that's just, I think that's the hardest part. And it's, look, I'll admit it, and it's so cringy. So so Chad, like, we have, okay, so let me back up. But at Eagle Sentry, we offer Savant. Savant's a different kind of control system, right? Well, Pulse Group, Chad's company, is a CSP. They do a lot of Crestron programming. They developed this really cool user experience called Cross Colors and Power Panel, and we use it at Mark's house, the business owner or partner of Eagle Sentry, and we have it at our house. And so one of our programming things was messed up. And it's actually kind of funny, right? So Chad programmed, and he's not a programmer. He's like the business owner. His business partner, Daniel, is like the programmer. Chad, I want to program our system. And so he programmed this scene where the light switches next to our bed, if you hit panic, all the lights go on and off, and they don't stop. So it's like full bright, down, and so it doesn't stop until you're supposed to like press and hold. So my daughter was like 2, wakes up from like a bad dream. It's like 3 a.m. Like, somehow I like hit panic. And all the lights in the house are going on and off.
Is it just lights?
Yeah.
No sounds?
No.
Okay.
It's not the greatest scene either, right? So it's like, they're going on and off, full bright, dim. My 2-step girls are like, what's going on, Marie? Everybody's freaking out. He's like, press and hold it down. I'm like, it's not working.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm married to the programmer. He literally had to get into his computer, like change the code,
Yeah.
like deploy it, the fix, and like fix our system at 2 a.m. I'm cracking up. I think it's the funniest thing because I'm like, well, nobody's stopped to call the police
Yeah.
with this panic button, right? Like
Yeah.
maybe we don't need this panic button. Meanwhile, what if I'm a client? Who do I call at 2 a.m.
Right.
because I've hit the wrong button and my panic? So this is like the level that you have to be thinking of when you're doing system design. And it's complicated because we are in the custom world. So when a button doesn't work and it's wild. But it's that backtracking and it's clients going, I don't know what my touch panel is.
Yeah.
I don't know what this scene is.
I don't think a lot of the clients actually know, the model number,
No.
maybe they know the brand.
I don't even know what model iPhone I have.
Right. So it's that same thing. It's like the one on my account. Like,
right.
duh.
The one I bought.
Yeah.
Look it up.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, I can't.
Yeah.
And you're just like, what? So I think and that's actually, something that you've revolutionized, which I love, is like this. So you went through the 30, 60, 90 hiring process and like onboarding, which was new to Eagle Sentry. Corey and I developed it, deployed it. It became like a cornerstone of how we onboard people. You took that and went, cool, I want to create a 30, 60, 90 experience for clients.
Mm-hmm.
And I think where you and I have some really awesome synergy that we'll capitalize on in the next couple of years is developing processes and experiences for clients who are getting the keys to their system, if you will, to have it be something so mind-blowing, so iconic for them that they talk about it. Hey, when I got my home theater delivered, when I got my smart home handed over, you have to hear the story of this demo. Like that's where we're going, right? And you've started that.
Right.
That's going to be your, I'm like manifesting this, but that's going to be your baby where you're like, okay, at 30 days, I'm checking in on this. And right now it's you're developing the bones.
Yeah.
But the purpose would be that a client is so empowered by their system that they do call and go, hey, I'm educated about it. I'm looking at the folder that was given to me, and this is what I have installed, and this is the warranty, and they know where to go. Not just like, hey, good luck. Hope your system works.
Yeah.
And they're like, what? Who do I call? How do I use
It's having
it?
those memorable experiences. So at the first day orientation at Eagle Sentry, two things I love. One, lunch with Corey, but I love the way that it's called. It's pizza with the president.
He loves food.
Yeah. So my first day, I don't remember what we had. I think we had pizza.
I'm sure Michael probably ordered, yeah.
And then my second favorite, my first favorite part of the orientation day is the theater demo.
Yes.
Right? That's the experience that we're delivering on a first day to employees.
Yep.
But that should be turned over to clients as well. They should have that same kind of wow factor when they're in their home and they're getting their client demo.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you had a life and full-on career before Eagle Sentry.
I did. I feel like I'm a cat. Like I've had 9 lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of feel that way. I've had 2 lives. I had my before COVID life, BC,
Okay.
and then after COVID. So it's kind of been the same for me, not quite 9, but I'd love to hear more about kind of where you came from. So you're from New Jersey.
Yes.
How'd you get to Las Vegas?
Oof. Well, that's an interesting question. My husband would call it the Babe Ruth story.
Okay.
So it's kind of tied into my career, but we'll skip that.
Okay.
I'll skip that. So I had just left criminal justice, started a new career. I had actually an engagement had ended a few months prior. I think people in my life probably thought I was like a little off my rocker. I had just turned down a fully funded PhD program to Rutgers, which I was like going for my whole life.
Yeah.
And I was like, but I don't know if you've ever had something where you feel like, okay, God's in control here. Like, this isn't me. I don't know what I'm doing, but I know that what I'm doing isn't right. So I have to make a change.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I was at. Came out of left field. And so as part of this role that I was in, I had to go to Park City. Never been to Park City, never been to Utah, never really left New Jersey on my own, was terrified. My mother was like, what do you mean you're going to Utah? Like, you're going to get killed and like hidden in the woods. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so scary.
That's crazy that that's what she thinks about Utah. I feel like most people think it's like, oh, nice Mormon people.
No,
like,
you don't know my mom. Yeah. That's the trauma and like other side of my life. But like, she's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're going to go. You're going to get on a plane. I'm like, yeah, there's this conference. I'm going to go. It's going to be fine. So I get there, I'm doing this conference.
What's the conference?
It's a chiropractic conference.
Okay.
There's a group in chiropractic. It's actually awesome. It's called the Ultimate Achievers Club. Okay. I was the executive director of it. It's really taken on a life of its own. But when I was doing it in 2012, it had like 50 to 60 of the world's top achieving chiropractors. So these are chiropractors with like multi-million-dollar practices and have transcended chiropractic. They're helping other industries, like really big influencers in the health and wellness space, typically, technology space, etc. And so I'm organizing that group and running that conference. And I am at the pool and I see this guy and I'm trying to get his attention because I'm like, it's like love at first. I feel like I know that. I'm like, I have to talk to him. Yeah. And he completely ignores me. Like, literally, do I know, like, he sees me and whatever. We have this thing. And we say that we, like, dated all day without talking. It's really weird. Long story short, we end up connecting. He basically was telling these reps from Morris Tate that he was with that he's like, I Babe Ruthed her. Like, she's going to be at the No Name tonight. We're going to see each other. And I was there. Okay. We talk all night. We hit it off. 3 months later, I basically move here. Okay. Like, essentially. I mean, that's like long and short of it. Nice. He came to visit me. I came out to visit him. It worked. And again, series of like weird, fortunate events happened where my lease had like ran into an issue. And so I needed to move and I was living with a friend temporarily while I was looking for a place. And just like a lot of things happened. And I was able to get a flexible working schedule and come out to Vegas and can keep working, keep doing what I was doing, but do it remotely from here, which is really cool because we're talking like Skype days. Yeah. So I'm dating myself right now. This was like people working virtually. Right. So it was really a privilege and I came out to Vegas. And at the same time or around the same time, I want to say it was like probably like a year into being here, I got an opportunity to work at UNLV. And so kind of, again, a lot of like weird career transitions we could talk about.
Did you ever think that you would be working at a university?
Yeah, I mean, so...
but you thought it from a PhD perspective. Yes. You thought you would be a researcher or a professor.
Yeah, so I went to school in Manhattan. I got my master's in criminal justice at John Jay. Okay. And I worked under a really incredible mentor, David Kennedy. If anybody watching is like not familiar, I recommend like research David Kennedy. He... wrote a book called Don't Shoot and founded a movement called the National Network for Safe Communities. Okay. It's basically, his mission was to kind of end group gang violence by shutting down like these open air drug markets and establishing communication between these offenders, if you will, and the police and social service providers. Incredible experience. I did my research on an open air drug market in Long Island. There was an intersection at Terrace and Bedell. It was a really hot spot for crime, open air drug market. You could roll up there any time of day, just buy whatever. And there was a lot of gang violence, shootings. Yeah. People just like, there was horrible stories where like, you know, stray bullet would kill a child or something. It was tragic. Yeah. And his intervention went in, did something called the Drug Market Initiative, where they basically stage a call-in. So they identify all of the players in the area, and they say, okay, these are the 10 people driving the violence, driving the crime. We're going to build cases with them with the DA and have all this evidence. We could put them away right now, but we're not going to. We're going to call them in, sit them down with the law enforcement, social services, and their family, their moms, their grandmas, their kids. And we're just going to ask them to stop. We're going to just be like, please stop. And everybody, and they're in the front row and they're playing these videos of like, here's what you did. We see you. Like we could send you, but we're not gonna, right? And they would also, at the same time, law enforcement would deliver apologies and say, we're sorry for what happened to you historically here, or that your dad went to, whatever it was, they would apologize and there would be this reconciliation. And overnight, like every time, as long as the messages were delivered properly and these components were followed, you would see these open air drug markets kind of dissipate overnight. Now, it's called a pulling lever strategy. It's based on focused deterrence. So normally you have like general deterrence specific. This focus lever approach would be, if I asked you right now, like, hey, Chris, if you sell me some drugs, how much time would you get?
Depends on the drugs, but if I sold you some drugs, maybe 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, you don't really know.
Yeah.
And it's probably like not guaranteed you're going to get caught. So you could take the risk and like sell me some drugs, right? Okay. Well, now if you've been arrested for it, you might have more experience, right? Oh, shit, I know if I sell some more drugs, I'm going to go away for this long. Yeah. Well, focused deterrence is, here's your criminal history, here's what you've done, and if you're caught with a bullet or anything on this list, here's how long you're going away. So now it's like a guarantee.
Yeah.
And then they would just watch the area. And sure enough, like somebody would always test the water, and immediately they have to be sent to prison.
Got it.
And it would kind of send this message of like, they're not fucking around. And so I did my thesis on that, and I interviewed, there's this really amazing woman, Risco, who dedicated her life to a group called the Council of Thought and Action, and I worked with her on meeting with these young men and women from CODA every Tuesday and Thursday. I would drive 2.5 hours to Long Island to just sit in these meetings, and I would interview them on their experience, on growth, on imposter syndrome, on changing their thoughts and their feelings. And I didn't know it at the time. This goes back to the connecting the dots, that was going to set the course for what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. Had no idea. I thought I was just doing research for my PhD. Wrote my thesis, made a lot of great relationships at Rutgers, got accepted with a full ride for my PhD, and ended up turning it down. I didn't think something was in me that like I didn't want to be in academia my whole life. Didn't know what the calling was.
Yeah.
And I went to, I remember the moment I was looking for jobs and I applied to one. It was an ad for this company called Action Potential Holdings. And I knew I was going to get this job. I just knew. And I went through a really rigorous hiring process and get the position. And it was in chiropractic, working for a really successful entrepreneur who recently sold his chiropractic scanning technology company and was starting all of these businesses. And I learned so much from him. And then ended up, when I came here and just everything shook out, decided I don't know what I want to do, but I want to do something in like brand development and strategy and work with companies to help build them. Yeah. I found that I just loved organizing and creating systems, and I was really passionate about working with leaders and growth. And so I developed my own company called In Retrospect, helped Chad establish his company, and had a number of clients in different industries start popping up, but at the same time started teaching part-time at UNLV as an adjunct, and immediately turned it into, I was teaching Intro to Criminal Justice. And after every test, I would give an optional professional development lecture, because I felt like when I was in college, there wasn't enough, here's how you shake a hand. Yeah. Here's how you overcome interview anxiety. Yeah. Here's how you face fears. Here's how you make difficult decisions about
They don't teach
your
that
career.
stuff.
They don't teach it.
Yeah.
I wanted to teach it.
Yeah.
And word got out, and every semester, like, you could see, I went from like, you tell kids optional, like everybody dips. Yeah. Then they were like, oh, this is pretty good. And so people started to stay, and I kind of developed a reputation for doing career and professional development. Okay. And there's a great professor at UNLV named Jenna Heath. I was just on her podcast. She talks about emotional leadership, but she had a career and professional development course in a different college that I was teaching at UNLV. So she teaches for COLA. I was at Urban Affairs. Yep. And so she helped develop my curriculum with me, and I got to teach Urban Affairs' first career and professional development for criminal justice course, which was really awesome. Yeah. I mean, I got to do something I was so passionate about. And I feel like really work with a lot of students on developing their skills and passions. And COVID hit and the world of teaching changed.
Yeah.
So, I mean, ultimately I left UNLV, but it was I was there for 10 years while I was also running this consulting business. Honestly, UNLV felt like a hobby to me, something I just really enjoyed being in a classroom teaching.
No, that's cool. And I think that, that was an awesome answer to my question. First of all, I didn't know that you had this sort of background in Long Island. That is one of the most incredible stories I've ever heard. So you killed it on that front. But yeah, so you go back to UNLV, COVID hits, online teaching isn't a thing, but that's awesome that you were able to not only kind of start your own thing in the criminal justice career development world, but you probably actually helped and influenced and changed the lives of many of your students, because these skills, people don't teach them. Like you said, no one teaches you how to shake a hand. Like no one teaches you how to craft a perfect resume. Like I think on that topic, we can transition to a talking point I wanted to touch base with you on. It's like resumes. There's different options. It's like there's the good enough option, and then there's the best. And prior to the show, I had told you that, one weakness of mine is that I will settle for good enough. So about a year ago, you tasked me with an assignment of making a Labor Day poster to post to our Instagram and our LinkedIn page. And I did what I thought was, it represented the task at hand. Here's our happy Labor Day thing. And you said, like, it's ugly, like, not good. We're trashing it. Do it again.
I did. That sounds like
yes.
Yeah.
But I think it's like a great perspective, because I settle for good enough, and I'm trying to get out of that habit. And it's really comes down to communication first and foremost, but also putting in that work. So you were telling me a story about your daughter and how you kind of coached her in the 3rd grade to manifest winning a yearbook competition.
Yeah.
Can you tell us that story?
Yes. So I don't know where this comes wired in me. And it's not perfectionism. You brought up the word perfectionism, right? It's not. It's, did I do my best? Every day. I mean, I just ask myself that. Did I do my best? And if I didn't, do better. Do more.
Right.
Do it harder, right? Like whatever it is. And I've kind of applied that my whole life. And I've lived by this principle, how you do anything is how you do everything. It's just guided me literally since I could remember. And so Sage, my daughter, comes home, and in the 3rd grade, she's like, Marie, I want to win this yearbook contest.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so win the yearbook contest. She's like, no, you don't understand. I remember this like clear as day. She's in my back seat. I look back. You don't understand. The 5th graders are going to win. You don't get picked in 3rd grade to like get this. It's like, it's rigged, right? And I'm like, no, do you want to win? And I think I maybe pulled over because I'm kind of an intense person. And I'm like, Sage, do you want to win the yearbook contest? She's like, I just said I want to win. I'm like, then you're going to win. What do you want on the cover? What do you want it to be? I have all these ideas, but it's not. And she was just watching this like doubt in her face. And I was like, Sage, if you have a plan and you do your best, they will feel it and you will win. She's like, all right. I get her all pumped up. There's like a deadline. So we do some research. We like kind of think through some ideas. And I have one rule. I'm not going to draw it for you. You're going to make it yours. You're going to be proud of it. And you're going to put in so much detail and so much heart. It's going to be undeniable. You're going to feel it off the page, right? Is that dramatic? So I remember the day. I've got my other daughter at the time. So if Sage was probably, how old are you in 3rd grade? Like 11, maybe, right?
We'll call it 11.
Let's say Ayla's like 8 or 9, right? So Ayla goes to bed, Chad goes to bed, and I'm sitting there with Sage, and we have like this like concept, and we look on like, and she's not allowed to trace, right? So you can't like, we're gonna draw it. She's not an artist, like, and we have this pad of paper, and she starts. and she'd mess up inevitably. And I'm like, and you could see like, and I'm like, is that your best? She's like, no. And I'm like, and I'd rip it out and I'd crumple it and I'd throw it. I'm like, start over. And she'd be like, and eventually like, she'd make some pretty good progress. Like we're halfway done and she'd mess up and I'd be like, are you happy with it? If you hand that in, are you like, I did my best? She's like, rips it, throws it. And we probably had like a pile. And this went into like probably the wee hours of like the morning, right? It's borderline cruel, maybe like 1, 2 a.m. on like a weekend. And she finally gets it done. She gets it nailed. And I'm like, after some tears, some yelling, some like pacing.
Yeah.
Is this it? She's like, this is it. Cool. Shut it down, go to bed. And she goes and submits it. And a few months later or weeks later, I don't remember, we get this call and she's like, Marie, I won. And she gets a $75 check. Yeah. It's this huge thing. And, we still have the yearbook and it's this memory. But again, I think the lesson there, and Ayla watched this at 8 and 9, but it's a theme I've tried to instill in all of the girls, like, do everything, like, just to the point of you can look at it and be like, that is my best work. And it's actually something I really want to inject more into Eagle Sentry. Like, people will be like, hey, I did this. And I want managers ask, is that your best? Yeah. Like, if not, go leave better notes. Yeah. Can you really look at that and be like, I put my heart into this and other people can feel it. If not, it's not good enough.
Right.
And you shouldn't settle for that.
So if you're speaking to me or if you're speaking to any individual, how do you go from good enough to is this my best? Is it just asking that question and debriefing when you have a final product?
I think so. Honestly, I think it's that simple. When you do your best work. You just do, right? Like, I don't care what it is. Like, and there's projects, again, I apply this in my own life. I decided to like embark on an attic organization project the other day. And Chad, ironically, is like wired very similarly, which is kind of a joke, right? Because our initials spell calm and we're both like very opposite of calm. Okay. And so we decided, hey, we're going to do this attic project. And it's almost Vegas summer, right? So I go up with him. We pull down everything out of our attic, 5 years worth of stuff. And I want to organize everything. I want to QR code my bins. I want to get rid, because we moved in when I was like 8 months pregnant. There wasn't a lot of thought into organization. So I'm like, let's do this right now. It's been 5 years. And we get everything down and he's like, well, if we're going to do this right, like we should really insulate the attic. We should do that. We should take our time. And I'm like, well, if we're going to QR code all the bins, like and so we have this whole system going on right now. But it's, I think, just asking, like, are we happy with this? Would we feel good if we just like, slapped a label on the bins and threw them up there and never thought about it again? Or do we want to do it right? And I think it's like, do it right. And so I went from, I've never really settled for good enough. And I'm somebody who hates limits. I don't like it when somebody says you can't do something. It's going to always fuel me to be like, okay, I'll do it 10 times, right? So I think the simple thing, if you don't, because there's a reason you're only doing good enough. I don't know what it is. It could be, it's not lazy. You're the least lazy person I know. It could be self-doubt. It could be procrastination because of it could be all of these. Who cares? Yeah. Is it your best? Yes or no? It's a simple question. Right. It's that black and white. And if you're like, I know I could do better, then don't cheat yourself. Because that's the only person. It's your brand. Right. That's what people don't understand. You're representing it is your
personal brand. Everything you do is personal brand.
That's it.
When you go to work, you're judged based on your character, your conduct, your personal brand, Absolutely. Your actions, your behaviors, your thoughts.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's infectious. And you have to kind of ask yourself at some point in your life, who do I want to show up as in the world? And it doesn't have to be perfect. It's not. I'm so far from perfect. And I don't want to be. I just want to keep doing better every day and asking like those hard questions. And if it's not my best, why? Yeah. And can I get better? How do I get better? What am I missing?
And I think it's thinking about just even having those thoughts in your head, like, hey, is this my best? A lot of people may not even ask that question, but
Yeah.
if you're thinking about it, like, you're probably on the right track. And then if you can consistently ask yourself that question, did I submit this assignment to the best of my ability?
Right.
Did I hit today's workout as hard as I could have hit it? It's asking those questions where you kind of figure out where your limits are, or lack of limits, I guess.
Right. I think so. I think there's I was just listening to the David Goggins interview on Chris Williamson's podcast.
Okay.
Have you listened to it?
No, but Chris Williamson, one of the people I watch on YouTube, just did a parody of him.
Oh yeah.
So he's pretty easily, he can make a joke out of Chris Williamson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So David Goggins was talking today about showing up when you don't have motivation.
Right.
I think it's similar,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't matter. And it's the same thing, like Jago talks about, like discipline.
Yeah.
We'll eat motivation for breakfast or something,
Yeah.
right? Like at the end of the day, like it's consistency. That's my thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just keep showing up.
Yeah.
Be predictable with your behavior. Show up in a way that, like, oh, Chris is going to keep trying. He's going to keep doing his best.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be this grandiose, like, epitome of perfection.
Mm-hmm.
It's just got to be real. And
Yeah.
I think it goes back to the core values. It goes back to that lesson I was trying to get across to Sage. When you are authentic and raw with, no matter how ugly it is, no matter how horrible or where you came from or what you did, like, that's you.
Mm-hmm.
You have to own that, and people can feel it. It's an energy.
For sure.
And I think that's something to think about, especially in the workplace.
So during my initial interview at Eagle Sentry, I talked about this Hertz frequency chart, which basically defines kind of the emotions on a scale. So I'm just finishing up this book right now called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself.
I just started that.
Okay.
It's
so,
mind-blowing. I love
all right, cool. So we can talk about that. So especially the first hour.
Yeah,
It's-
it's rocked me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was on a plane when I was listening to that audiobook, and it's very high level.
Have you read The Power of Now?
By Eckhart Tolle. I've read about half of The Power of
Okay.
Now.
So it's very Eckhart Tolle.
Yeah.
You're tapping into your unconscious and, all of that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So energy. I mean, maybe 5 years ago, I would say, that's woo-woo. That's
Yeah.
for yoga people. That's for, hypnotists, and none of that's real. And the older and wiser I get, the more time I spend on Earth, I realize how true, like, energy is. And one of the basic premises of the book is that your thoughts becomes your behaviors, which becomes your actions. And I had never really put a grasp on my own life how powerful the thoughts you think are and how they manifest, because every thought you think comes out into life.
Oh, yeah. You speak it into existence.
And it's like the manifesting thing with the yearbook thing. It's like, are you kind of interested in winning the yearbook competition, or are you full on like, I'm going to do this?
I did it with my PhD. So, like, a little, again, historical background about me. Academically, I was not great. I was
Yeah.
an underdog, to say the least.
Yeah.
I was not strong in high school. I was kind of bullied. I had, like, a pretty rough childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And really had no plan to go to college, like zero,
Yeah.
opposite of a plan. Like I think about like my girls, their senior year, when they graduated, Sage was salutatorian. She was second in her class.
Yeah.
She's a super impressive kid. Ayla just graduated in the top 10%, got
Yeah.
all these awards, amazing ROTC, like participation, commander, like enlisted in the Navy. I was taking ceramics
Yeah.
my senior year, and like art and anything I could to not, like, just to be done.
Yeah.
I blew off the SATs because I was like, I'm not going to go to college. I don't know what I'll do. Maybe I'll be a hairdresser. And somehow decide like I'm going to go to community college, and went to community college. Was like, I don't really know what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
And I worked for a police department, but I worked full time. I worked a lot. I was
Yeah.
a 911 dispatcher. I
Yeah.
was a records clerk, and I had to find time to eat in between work and school. And
Yeah.
the Criminal Justice Club offered free lunch.
Nice.
And so I would just go to
Yeah.
these meetings to eat. Next
Yeah.
thing you know, I'm like, this is kind of interesting.
yeah.
Next thing you know, I'm president of the Criminal Justice Club.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, I'm like, hey, I kind of like leadership. Hey, I kind of like criminal justice. Hey, I think I want to be a police officer. Oh, no, I don't. I want to go to John Jay and research. And it snowballed. Long story short, I start thinking about the master's program, and they're like, well, you don't need your GREs to get into the master's program at John Jay. And I'm like, oh, cool. Like,
Nice.
I'll just do that,
Yeah.
right? Because I don't want to take my GREs. Have to take them to get into Rutgers. I freeze up during standardized tests and maybe I manifest that. I don't know. But either way, I fucking hate them. I get like a horrible score. And you don't get fully funded PhD opportunities with like an 800-ish GRE score. Like you just don't. They don't look at you. And I was like, oh, it will happen. And everybody's like, you're insane. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And I knew all these people and I tapped into my personal brand and went, that's what I want. How do I get there? And when I say, you heard me talk about my research, that meant everything to me. And when I was in these rooms with these like law enforcement leaders and people on the board of the Rutgers admissions committee, they felt it.
Yeah.
And they didn't give a shit when they saw my application.
Yeah.
Of what it looked like on paper. They knew I had grit, I had motivation, I had passion, and I was going to elevate that program. And, you know, yeah, I picked a different path. But I think you can Babe Ruth something and go, this is what I want. I remember when I first met you, you talked to me a little bit about, I think you were at a conference or something, and you decided, like, I want to do the smart home, and you, like, went on a mission to kind of rebrand yourself.
Yeah.
And look at what you're doing.
It's really is crazy.
CEDIA is flying you there to be on panels. You've manifested that through your own ambition and growth. You started this podcast, you're interviewing all these people. It's going to snowball. And you'll be successful because you said, I want this.
Yeah.
You'll be successful because you just asked the question, hey, how do I stop settling in my life? Well, you've already stopped because you're asking.
And I think that is the first step. Yeah. And I just found a lot of clarity on kind of what I wanted. Yeah. Like, I just had to ask myself a lot of difficult questions about what I wanted out of life. Like, kind of, I've been drifting and dabbling, and then I got clarity on what I wanted. And I think there's no shame in, I want this car, and I want to live in this neighborhood, and I want to do this. And I think if you don't define that, you're putting yourself in, you know, a box where you're having someone else choose how your life is going to go for you.
1000%. One of the things I used to talk to my clients about is if you don't have a vision, you will ultimately pay people to build it for you. Yeah. And you get this really disjointed experience of your company, of your brand, and people don't know who you are. You have to be so firm in your reality. But yeah, so my best friend recommended that book to me. And I started reading it, and I was just telling him this actually on the way here. Yeah. He's like, hey, are you still reading it? I'm like, I paused it. Yeah. Because I normally listen to audiobooks when I'm like blow drying my hair or like driving, and it's so deep that I want to like dig in and do the work and really challenge some of my own limiting beliefs that I've been dealing with lately. So I'm like, I kind of paused it until I have these like moments of silence at, 5 a.m. or something before the gym where I can like listen to it and actually like take notes.
Yeah, it's honestly pretty mind-blowing, folks. If you haven't read it, it's definitely a great...
Joe Dispenza.
Yeah, Dr. Joe Dispenza, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. He has a couple different books. The back part is going into the actual meditations behind it, so I'm just about to get to that part. So we've gone over kind of the theory, the lessons behind it, but just how he speaks about time and the universe and the environment around you. Like, it's very high level. So if you've never been exposed to books like these, it can definitely be an eye opener. There's tons of books like these, The Power of Now. The next one on my list is called Reality Transurfing. Okay. Which is, again, probably even more high level when it comes to that type of book knowledge, but
the quantum physics.
Yes, quantum physics, very high level stuff. You and I both love Atomic Habits.
Yeah.
I think everyone should read Atomic Habits.
Absolutely.
What are some other ones of your favorites? I'm a big Extreme Ownership, Jocko Willink.
Yeah, you got any I haven't read that yet.
You should.
I will. I love Atomic Habits. gosh, there's so many. I had actually really got into Ryan Holiday's Stoicism stuff.
Yeah.
So a lot of like my reading, I don't read a ton anymore on like business leadership. I mean, I will if I think there's a good book. I've read the classics, right? The Good to Greats, the Made in America, like a bunch of these that I think were pivotal in me understanding certain concepts. I have like always struggled with anxiety. And so again, what attracted me to this book was any sort of not mind control, but kind of like really being confident and centered in who you are and what you're doing has been an attraction to me. So like Hidden Potential, when I just read that one, it's all along the same vein. And I'm also big into health. Like if anybody hasn't read Outlive yet by Peter Attia, I think it's a non-negotiable. Like, should
I read that one next? I'll add it to my list.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, I'm really big on health. For a lot of reasons, but I think Outlive does a remarkable job of compartmentalizing. It's more than longevity, but like compartmentalizing this concept of medicine 3.0 and how to achieve more of like health span. So people are living longer, but you don't want to hit 60 or 70 and have the last decade, 2 decades of your life just be absolute crap.
Yeah.
So how do we optimize ourselves for what he calls the centenarian decathlon and really armor yourself? And there's certain markers that you can do. My functional medicine doctor is a guy named Dr. Stephen Janopoulos. He's got a phenomenal Instagram account people can follow called @DrStephenG. He talks a lot about these principles, but getting comprehensive blood panels and what they mean. And Dr. Attia talks about that in Outlive, talks about longevity and what you can do to boost your VO2 max and build an aerobic base and why that would be important in these functional years of your life where you really need to be able to remain independent. Yeah. So for that alone, I think it's just another way for people to learn the basics.
Well, people don't teach the basics. Like, that's the thing. It's, the standard American gets fed the food by, the big food companies. They get fed the drugs by the big pharma. They are indoctrinated by the education system. It's like, they talk about escaping the matrix in the 2024 society, but really people are in the matrix. Like they don't know.
They don't know.
They don't know. It's sad.
And I think you have to, like, if that's one thing I'm super passionate about, is just be an educated consumer. Don't question everything. Don't overconsume, right? Like, there's a lot of books you can read, and I love this, the Almanac of Naval Ravikant. If you haven't read that, he talks a lot about, like, it's about quality, not quantity. Who gives a shit if you've read 87 books a year, but you're not applying any of it, or you're just listening and it's not making sense? Like, he talks about going to the basics, go to macroeconomics, microeconomics, like mathematics, like learn these principles that are rock solid. And I think quantum physics, right? Like universal intelligence, innate intelligence. Like, these are principles that withstand the test of time. Yeah. Trends fade, right? Like meditations and affirmations and like what works for you, and then apply it rigorously and like be a student of yourself and study like what's working, what's not working. Right. It's the only way you start to make that shift.
And I think you hit the nail on the head. It's like, you can't just read these books. You have to adopt the principles and see what works for you. So for instance, there's a diet called the vertical diet where it says like, white rice is the best for you. And I enjoyed white rice for a while, but I noticed that probably my glucose levels, it was kind of hitting me bad in the afternoon where, I would go into kind of a fatigue state. And I recently switched to brown rice and my work productivity has improved. It's like my after lunch slump is no longer there. And I know you're big on carnivore, eating steak, fasting, things like that. It's proven.
And I wasn't, so again, one of the things I love about Dr. G's stuff is so I've been a patient of his since 2012. I got diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. I don't know if you know that. And it was like earth shattering to me. And it wasn't like a super aggressive state, it was just enough to be like this horrible wake up call of like, oh my gosh, like, and I went to, without exaggeration, like 7 GIs in the valley, and everyone was worse than the next. They were like, take a pill, eat and drink whatever you want, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
And I'm watching these videos and I'm going, and I want to be an educated consumer. I want to own my health. I just watched my father suffer a horrific death, succumb to diabetes, kidney disease, was getting amputated. It was horrible, absolutely horrible, but it was fucking preventable.
Yeah.
And he was on 50 medications, like no joke, right? And I'm like, the medical system failed. And there's a time and place for medical intervention, right? If I get hit by a car, I want to go to the ER. I want them to fix me. I want surgery. I want these things. But what am I doing? They're not trained on health and nutrition and these preventative measures. It's not in the curriculum. That's a fact. Peter Attia talks about this in Outlive, right? Yeah. So I'm like, that doesn't sound right. I have a digestive disease and you're telling me eat, drink, whatever you want.
Just take one pill.
And take, not one pill. Dude, I'm 25 years old. They're like, just take these suppositories the rest of your life. I'm like, you want me to stick shit up my ass for the rest of my life and eat and drink whatever I want? It's going to be all good. I'm like, no fucking thank you. There's got to be a better way. See Steve. Steve's like, okay, Dr. G, I'm going to put you on this elimination protocol. Yeah. I did for like over a year an elimination protocol where the craziest things happened to my body. And I started like introducing things and repairing my gut and learning about what works, what doesn't work. I started reintroducing foods and learned about myself. Like I was highly sensitive to certain things, like gluten. I could eat and feel immediate like reaction, but I'm not celiac. So what people don't know about gluten is there's all these other markers that if you have a gluten insensitivity, the celiac markers are only a few, but you could have a gluten intolerance, but they're not testing for it. So when I did the full gluten panel, they're like, oh yeah, your transglutaminase and like something else just spiked. You shouldn't be eating gluten. Oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. One of the things was like, it could affect your skin. I would get like dry skin and eczema. Cut the gluten out, like that stopped. Yeah. So you start learning and you start going, oh, what I eat does matter. Of course it matters. And most recently, so I've tried different diets with him based on whatever metabolic state I was in. I was in a highly inflamed state when I worked with him initially. My everything was elevated. My cortisol, my glucose. I mean, it was just a hot mess. Got it all under control, like got pregnant. That's a different requirement of what I need. Post-pregnancy, my flare-up was bad. What do? I went extreme carnivore for like probably 5-6 months just to chill out the inflammation. And I don't mean like fake carnivore. Like I was eating all the high quality meats and fats and drinking the bone broths and trying to heal my gut, and everything started to clear up. And yeah, I implemented supplements and I've had a lot of luck with other, with supplementation, but I've been able to pretty much get it in remission by applying my best, effort to go, I can heal my body. And it wasn't just food. It's also been what I'm telling myself and that my body is capable of healing. Joe Dispenza was mentioned in a documentary called Heal on Netflix. Have you seen that?
No.
I watched it a while ago and I ended up hiring the woman in that documentary, Diane. She has a practice. She does like neuro-linguistic programming, but learned so much about my mind and like these thoughts and these tapes that I've told myself for years about my own limitations on healing and what was possible. And when you start removing those things, you'd be surprised what opens up in your world, but you have to be willing to go, that doesn't sound right. And I think there's a better standard of living. And I don't care if people think I'm crazy because in the end of the day, like who's advocating for you? You. Exactly.
Right. Yeah, so I think 99% of people would have just it's a doctor. They know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
But a lot of doctors would probably just take the easy way out.
That's it. A lot of people.
Yes.
Yeah. Why? Because it's easier. No, I don't want them. But eating healthy is incredibly easy. It's incredibly easy. You shop the perimeter of your grocery store. You pretty much buy some high quality meat, some high quality vegetables. Don't overthink it. Yeah. If you eat it and you feel good, great. If you eat it and you're bloated, don't eat it.
Yeah.
you don't have to worry about this diet, that diet. I want to go vegan. I want to go, and I'm not extreme right now. I eat a really balanced diet. It's just consistent throughout the day. And if I eat something and I go, oh, that didn't make me feel good, I'll track it. I track my glucose and my ketones with like a device called My Keto Mojo. And I just to kind of see like, what am I doing? What throws me in rhythm, out of rhythm? How do I feel when I'm in those states? Just to get data on myself. I think that's, and he talks about that in Outlive, just kind of getting more information about how your body performs, like looking at your numbers and not like your Apple Watch numbers, right? But truly, what does my blood say? What is my, because I want to perform at my best. I want to be in this interview and be able to feel great and not be like weighed down by sluggish, bad habits.
Same. I think it's, showing up as your best self is super important. It's like, I was only able to go to the gym for a certain amount of time after work before this podcast. So I went to the gym.
Hey, you got it in.
Yeah, I did some steps, 20 minutes just on the treadmill. But that gets me in a better mood because I can watch different podcast episodes and see my frequency, if I'm in a slump, if I'm happy, if I'm sad, if something fired me up. It's like I can tell the difference. I don't know if the audience can see if they're that critical of who Chris is, but I want to show up as my best self on every occasion. So, that's why I have my strict morning process. It's like going into the gym in the morning. If I wasn't to go to the gym in the morning, I would show up, be angry, be slower.
What's your morning routine?
Morning routine right now, I'm getting up at 3:45. I do about an hour of deep work, Cal Newport style.
Love it.
I'll do my hygiene routine, which, I don't think men appreciate enough their hygiene routine and how important that is.
Absolutely.
And then I'll hit the gym at 5:30, the Dragon Slayer with my girlfriend, and then I'm on my way to work.
Nice.
And then...
but it's intentional.
Yeah, it's super intentional. And it's my biggest thing, if I can give my one key lesson of life, it's don't miss. Yeah. It's like, I haven't called in sick to work.
No, you're
in the last 7 years. Not just at this job, but the job before that. It's all about being super consistent. Like, I don't miss the gym. Yeah. Right? I go to the gym every day without missing. Even if I have a flat tire, I'm gonna find my way there. It's like I remember, speaking of a flat tire, one day you saw me and like I was coming to the gym with a flat tire. It's like, yeah, that might have been extreme, but I think it's super important to not miss and have that consistency and show up to be your best self.
Agreed.
And it's all about trial and error, experimentation.
Change it.
Finding what works best for you and really asking those questions.
I would agree. I think in that one of the things in Unreasonable Hospitality talks about is intentional. Being intentional with your time, with your energy, and where you put yourself. It doesn't matter. And I've heard, there's different schools of thoughts. Like, you don't need a morning routine. Just fucking get out there and get to work. And okay. Like, but be intentional, right? Like, you don't have to make your bed to be successful. Yeah. Is it your best? Probably not. Does it feel good? No. Like, to me, it's just a feel good thing. Yeah. I like my space organized and clean because for me, it's a mind clutter thing. If I can keep everything organized and physically it feels in check, then I'm able to go through my day a little bit more effortlessly. Yeah. And if I don't get to, it's not a deal breaker. I don't let it kill me, but I do have an intentional morning routine and an intentional like throughout the day routine to make sure, am I hitting these check marks for myself? And then an intentional nightly routine. Like non-negotiable, like my husband and I sauna every night. It was the best like post-COVID purchase we've ever made. 20 minutes in the sauna, cold plunge, like before we engage in family dinner. And it's like the best transition to ground us both in being present. But it's intentional. Yeah. It's, hey, what do we want to do with our evenings from 5 to 8? And then I'm usually in bed because, I'm up early.
Yeah, we know. Ever since we changed the after hours to 8 p.m., LM and I are extremely happy by that.
So happy. I was like,
no
this
more
is
10
not
p.m.
reasonable.
No more 10 p.m.
Yeah.
All right, LM. So we are wrapping on the time we have for today, but want to ask any final thoughts, any shout outs, any kind of just final messages that you would like to send out to the Elevation family?
I just think if you're watching this, it probably says that you're into growth and you are looking to elevate either yourself in a career, personally or professionally. And if you're doing that, then you're on the right track, and just keep exploring and keep growing, because if you're not growing, what are you doing?
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
So you guys heard it here first. You definitely want to stay on the path. But that's what Elevation with Chris Oram is all about. It's, climbing the ladder of success, being better than the person you were yesterday. And I really think Lisa Marie was able to embody all of those things, as well as tell some amazing stories, some stories that I've never heard before as well. So with that, LM, we'll go ahead and wrap episode number 14 of Elevation with Chris Oram, where we talk to individuals who have climbed the ladder of success. Thanks for being a guest on the show today, LM.
Thanks for having me.